All right. Hold on, let me see. How y'all doing? I ain't been here in a while. So give me a little time to get this back together. I promise you I'm gonna try to be more consistent with these shows for sure. Because I absolutely love talking about hot topics going around in the community for sure. Today our topic is pretty simple, and I'm looking for an opposing view. So if anybody want to hop on, I'll send you the link to hop on if you really want to discuss it, because I'm looking for an opposing view. But I got my mans today, EJ. We're gonna talk about, should kids be charged as adults? Now, crazy, I just literally so we do this program with the police on Thursdays where a bunch of my mentees come together and other kids in the community, and the police actually run this mentoring program. They get them food, they play basketball with them, and they also participate in the conversations. And what was the hottest topic? What was the topic in the conversation? Should they were more referring to this young man, but should young people be charged as adults for certain crimes? And of course, if you have been following me, you kind of know where I stand with this situation. I do not, under any circumstances, believe that young people should be charged as adults. And I know saying that it's like a blanket statement, and a lot of people don't like when you make blanket statements like that. But I'm going to bring on my man's EJ, and I'll let him explain more of why he feels that way. I'm sure I'm going to take some of those same points, and I also will tell you my own personal reasons why I think that we need to be very careful with always trying to make sure that we charge young people as adults. And I've heard some crazy stuff that I want to address as well. So share the video, invite your friends to look at it. And as we get ready to get started with our show, thank you for joining us. We do definitely appreciate all your love and all your support. All right. So you're a little dark there. You might need a little light, brother. You might need a little light. Oh, this guy. All right. All right. So So go ahead. So like I said, I got my guy EJ. He's gonna explain. So just give us like your quick synopsis of why you think that young people should not be charged as adults.
You want me to explain that? All right, is this better?
Yeah, it's better.
Studio lighting. Well, I think the question needs to be, when you ask should kids be charged as adults, I think that you have to grapple with what you're asking for, right? So kids who are charged as adults in some states are housed in the same facilities as adults, right? Which means that they're more likely to be sexually abused in those facilities. They're more likely, the suicide rates are much higher in those facilities for kids, right? And so I think when you ask that question, I think you have to be clear, and people who believe that kids should be tried as an adult have to understand exactly what they're asking for. Now, I mean, kids are not adults, right? And the law recognizes that in myriad ways, right? Driving, you cannot get your license until you reach a certain age, right? I mean, you can get it as a child, but still, we put an age limit there. Voting, drinking, even in in terms of kids making schooling decisions, like we recognize that kids are limited in their ability to make decisions in so many ways, and this was before the science had become proliferated that says that most kids don't develop their prefrontal cortex, which is their decision making, their ability to analyze risk and understand the implications and collateral consequences of their actions until they're 25 years old. So why would you want to treat that person like an adult? I think we need to be, it's sad, and I don't think that should be left out, that kids commit heinous crimes. But I think when you talk about what your alternatives are and, what you want in terms of creating a safer society for everyone, you need to consider the fact that kids are kids and they need to be treated as such.
So what do you say to individuals, because it's a big thing now, what do you say to individuals that say, well, what if they committed rape? What if they raped an older person? What if they did this? Like, what do you say to individuals that give you those type of responses?
Well, I mean, there's this common, narrative floating around that when you are a kid and you're charged as a kid, that there's no accountability within the system for you, which is not true. And as someone who's represented children in the system, I can tell you that there is a lot of accountability, and I think in a lot of ways, grave injustices perpetrated on kids in the juvenile system. Not to never mind the fact that black kids are treated disproportionately. They're suspended at higher rates, which leads to their involvement in the juvenile justice system. They're less likely to be informally diverted, which means that they are charged formally within the juvenile justice system. They get sent to juvenile detention camps at higher rates for similar crimes. So I think this idea that they're not held accountable for their actions is a false narrative. And so, I think we have to disabuse ourselves of that narrative first before we have an intelligent conversation about accountability within the juvenile justice system, and the idea that kids can commit rapes and murders and just go free with a slap on the wrist, because that's just not true.
Exactly. I agree. And I was literally having this conversation because a lot of people are focused on what happened recently in Michigan, which I understand. My mom will go there too. But I tell people all the time, like, you need to look more into majority of the people that are being violated by the justice system is not 15-year-old white boys from Oxford, Michigan. The issue that we need to be addressing is like majority of people that are into these situations are black teens. And so why are we not having those conversations? Because that is who's impacted most by these decisions to charge them as an adult. I've seen that more with black teens than I've seen with Caucasian teens. Of course, it's a big thing, so everybody's on tip about the Oxford situation, which I understandably so. But the biggest issue I tell people is that you need to look at. I was telling these kids because I was in the conversation today. The kids were like, yeah, people should be charged as adults. They commit the crime. And I'm like, man, you all don't even know that this mostly impacts you. You're the ones who are really the victims of this justice system, which is wild to me how people still feel like, wow, we should charge them as an adult. So it's crazy. So continue on, brother, though. Don't let me stop you.
Well, I mean, I think Jalen said they want to be added to the conversation. I don't know if they have a different view.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking for, different views, but it's cool if you agree. I don't have no problem with that. I did send a link though, so if you're watching this, Jalen, just click on the link in the group chat. Is there? All you gotta do is click on that, and it'll add you automatically to the conversation. But I definitely want to hear. I mean, I've seen some opposing views. I can actually read some of them if people want to hear, because I do want to hear an opposing view of what people are thinking. I've heard a lot of it. I've read a lot of it recently. None that has swayed my opinion, but it's always good to have a second view, a second opinion. So we'll see if the brother Jalen can get on as well. But so another thing is, when you talk about like some of the decision makings that people make, another issue I guess I find in the black, and I'm going to address this a little later. They don't have the same resources, and also something I said earlier is that a lot of black people, when they go and they get interviewed by the police, they don't know, they don't have to say anything. They end up getting tricked into saying something. And so even if they did commit the crime, they probably would get off, but they went down there talking too much, or they got tricked by the police or tricked by the prosecutor to making a statement. And and so those are other factors I believe that go into why young people, they need to be very careful on how we handle young people as it relates to the justice system.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and we've seen the push for reformation within the system regarding juvenile justice, for laws that mandate that officers have to call parents before they interrogate a kid, right? And I think there's a reason for that, because kids are easily manipulated, especially when they're in foreign surroundings, like a police station where there's a show of authority and a threat to their security and their freedom. So yes, I mean, I think, and I think we really have to understand that the juvenile justice system, while like even in my practice as a criminal defense attorney, being a juvenile defense attorney is a lot different from being from defending adults. You know, you're much more of a social worker. You're much more of a mentor, a big brother in my in my position. And kids, you really get to see the even with some of the ones who have committed some really heinous crimes. I'll give you an example. I had a kid once who was going around the community with a toy firearm and robbing people in the community. So he would stick people up with a toy firearm, but it looked real. He scared the living daylights out of these people. And, as I'm handling his case and I'm getting to know him, I'm asking him, why, like, why? Like, why would you do something like this? And he's just like, well, it was a fake firearm. Like, I knew I wasn't going to hurt anybody. And I just wanted to get some money so I can buy Christmas presents, and it's like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, they just don't, you can see it, even with somebody like that. And I mean, when I tell you the victims, he scared the living crap out of them, right? And it didn't register to him that, you can't do this, even though you're not going to hurt anybody. You can't do this because you're scaring the crap out of people. And that's not the way you go to get Christmas presents, and it's like, that's an anecdotal, personal experience that I've had, but I've seen it time and time again where kids really just don't understand the implications of their actions. And again, he wasn't held without accountability. He because he was of a certain age, he had strikes on his record, which, means that if he gets in trouble as an adult, he's looking at serious prison time. So there isn't this notion. And I think that's really my issue is we have to stop thinking about the juvenile justice system like it's just this complete slap on the wrist that allows people to, go out and recidivate and commit more crimes and whatnot. And we have to start considering more so the resources that go into making whole, healthy children, good education, good food, good mentors, good role models that they can look up to, that they can learn from. And ultimately, if they have mental health issues, getting the help that they need to deal with those issues, not just, we just need to throw them away. Because if you all wanted to see what happens when you just throw kids away, look at Nathaniel Abraham, somebody mentioned, he's still in prison to this day, in and out of prison his whole life, for once he was charged at 11 years old in Michigan. And I think at some point we have to start asking ourselves, how do we want to create a safer environment that we all can benefit from? And I don't think that charging kids as adults, because they're not adults, right, is the way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I see Sandra wants to jump in. Sandra, if you're watching, the link is on it's at the bottom in the comments. So all you gotta do is click on one of those links. I posted like a few times. So once you click the link, you'll pop up and I'll let you join the conversation. I think Sandra does have an opposing view as well. And so the craziest thing is that you say that situation. I had a kid who was and he's locked up right now for this same situation to this day. And the issue was he was going around robbing people with a fake gun as well. But they didn't have a lot of evidence on him. But one of the things that he did when he spoke with the police, he admitted to what he did because he thought because it was a fake gun, it wasn't as serious. And he didn't know that you could get charged like that's a real gun. He didn't know that. So like he was like, when I was admitting to it, I didn't think I was admitting to nothing crazy. And I'm like, so people don't understand that even when they go down there, because to be quite honest with you, I didn't even know that they could take. Actually, he wasn't robbing people. He was busting out windows with a fake gun, and they say, or shot out some windows with a BB gun or something like that. But they say that since he used it as like would use a real gun, they charged him like it's a real gun. And anyways, he got a gun charge on his record. He's in prison right now, charged as an adult. He's in prison because of that. And I think like that's kind of crazy and ridiculous that not only did he not, of course, he don't have the family to be able to get him a lawyer. He don't have the family to be able to tell him like, hey, you go down there, don't say anything. So he doesn't have a lot of support system overall to be able to have those conversations and be able to get himself out of those situations. And at the same time, is the biggest thing is I tell people all over and over again is that these young people don't have the same guidance and direction. And like you said, I think there's a misconception that young people are being set free, or if they'll get charged as an adult, they'll go free within a year or something small. But I'm trying to explain to them like it doesn't work that way, So I'm glad you mentioned that as well. Sandra, we still trying to let you in, brother. I don't know if you're trying to get in or not. I don't know if you're trying to. We don't see you, Sandra. Jalen, I saw you pop up and then you left out, so you got to come back. If you have any questions for us, put it in the chat. You got questions, you got opinions. We would love to read those opinions and questions. So make sure you put those in the chat as well. You feel free to comment. I see, a few people watching, so make sure you feel free to comment. Let us know you agree, you disagree. It's definitely up for discussion, and it's definitely a hot topic that I've seen happen year after year after year, starting with the good brother Nathaniel Abraham. And I don't know if people know how much, I mean, I don't know his whole life story, but I know if you kill somebody at 11 years old, that can't be good. Yeah, I can't see him having no good influences in his life if he was coming by 11 years old. Here's our brother Sandra. We're gonna bring him on. You gotta. I don't. It don't say you muted, but we can't hear you. This brother can't get his. He can't get his technology right down there, brother. Come on now. I thought you were working technology all day.
Your cousin Jason won his $20.
Let me see. So Sandra's gonna come back in. And Jalen here. All right, so we got a few people. All right. Can you talk? Jalen here. All right, so we got a few people. All right. You gotta click off of it, Jalen. Click off the actual Facebook Live and talk. You go ahead. You got it, Jalen. Click off the actual Facebook Live and talk. You go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
You said you can?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm actually agreeing with you guys about the
So mute the regular video. I see you got the other video up. Just mute that.
Okay, hold on.
And then just talk. Come on, y'all gotta know how to use y'all little technology, man.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
I keep hearing an echo.
Yeah, you might hear it. Let me I'll mute.
Okay, so I'm actually agreeing. Children should not be charged as adults, as working at Detroit Behavior Institution and also working for Detroit Public Schools. I see this every day, youth coming in for gun charges, armed robbery, and other stuff. The incident that happened in Oxford, it was numerous of conversation going on about he was bullied and everything, and that the principal, the administration had meetings with the parents prior to that incident that day and the day before. What we have to come to realize is that, again, he still is a child, and whatever situation that was going on prior to the shooting, something should have been addressed to him being bullied. Something. It's not just kids don't just come out the blue and start doing these things, shooting up schools or targeting certain people. It's something that led to this of him reacting to this. A lot of people don't have that support, household support, school support. I'm sorry, this echo is really.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if you have another. If you have the screen up, and another, you got to take the screen down. If you have it. And let me say this about the Oxford situation real quick. And like I said, I make the status overall, and I want to discuss it because, of course, it's a hot topic right now. Do me a favor, mute your mic for me, Daily. We got let me try to. All right, we'll bring him back in a moment once he gets his technology all together. But one of the things that I believe I want people to know that I'm saying, I don't know what the situation is in Oxford. Honestly, I followed it. A lot of people are saying you hear different stories and things like that. I don't know that situation, and I'm not really prone to comment on things like that. My overall thinking is that kids should not be charged as an adult, no matter the situation, no matter the crime. And so what I think, and as we stated earlier, it's not saying that a kid should not be held accountable. A kid should not be tried to be rehabilitated. We're not trying to take that away. And if anybody knows anything about me, I was just saying this earlier too. I believe in kids taking their challenges and using that as motivation to do well. That's something I've done in my life. And I tell people that all the time. But everybody don't have a mentor, or everybody don't have a father figure. Everybody doesn't have that teacher that they can look out to. And sometimes they make dumb decisions. Sometimes they get themselves in dumb situations. And so what we have to realize is that that's the reason why we do not, as EJ was saying earlier, there's a reason why we say kids can't drink until a certain age. There's a reason why we say kids can't drive to a certain age, because we know that their decision-making ability is not as strong as when they get older. So don't come tell me, oh, I heard somebody said this today, and it irritated my soul. I ain't gonna lie to you. Somebody said today, well, they make grown man decisions, they make grown man choices, they get grown man consequences. And my biggest thing that I try to explain to people is like, what do you mean they're not capable of making grown man decisions? Because they're not grown. So stop saying they're making grown man decisions. No, they're not making grown man decisions because they're kids. So kids can't make grown man decisions. Now, a lot of times kids have to move on their own, they have to do things on their own, and they have to end up doing handling situations, but they're not grown people. So you can't use that same thing. If that's the case, they should be able to vote. If that's the case, they should be able to drink. They should be able to choose what school they can go to. They should be able to choose to leave the house whenever they want. We're going to try to bring Jalen and Sanju back. I don't want to do all the talking.
So,
go ahead.
So I'll say, Brian Stevenson, who, if people aren't aware, Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama, excellent lawyer, amazing guy. He basically argued two of the most important cases on juvenile justice, ending the death penalty for children, as well as life without the possibility of parole for children, with his arguments at the Supreme Court within the last decade or so. But I'll say he told a story once about how he had written a motion, and sent it off to a judge, because, if the idea that kids can be treated as adults in the system is accepted as true, well, he wrote a motion that asked for his client to be looked at as a wealthy white male, right? Because he's like, we know that wealthy white males, regardless of their guilt or their innocence, tend to get treated better in the system. So if we're going to make up these arbitrary associations that kids are adults, then why don't we just turn all of our kids? Why don't you just look at all of our kids as, a wealthy white male? And, it was obviously facetious on his part in writing the motion, but I think he makes the point clear in that, kids are not adults, and there's no dividing line between like, oh, well, this kid committed this crime, so this kid is an adult. It doesn't work like that. They're still kids.
Okay. I have to jump in here.
Yeah, please jump in. We're glad you was able to get your technology together, brother.
Don't come for me, brother. Don't come for me. So here's where I stand with this is Yes, juveniles are different. They're in most juveniles, your cognitive thinking, in most young people, your cognitive thinking doesn't finish developing until you're 18 to 21. So I understand
25.
that. 25, okay, 18 to 25. That's when it starts to finalize. 25 with men and 18, 19 with young ladies. It's a different maturity level in there. But we have to understand that if a 15-year-old kills 5 people, we're not looking at him like a 15-year-old. He has to be looked at. He has to be looked at in accordance to his crime. Now, I'm not saying give the young man. What do you mean? Why?
Yeah, I'm just asking a question. It's not about why does
okay. The why is because we can say, okay, he didn't understand his actions. He's still a minor. There's some nature versus nurture things that we may have to look at. But we're talking about multiple murders. We're talking about understanding what you've done and keeping that action going. Unless first of all, to take a life is not something that is easily done, easily understood. So to do it once, that's a hard thing to process, understand with. But to continue that is to say to me is I understood, I got it, and I'm okay with the consequences of it. So yes.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Now I don't believe that a first-time offender should get for a crime such as murder. The justice system in itself was not created for us to be treated equally in it. The justice system was meant to punish us. It's just for us. The justice part is not for us. The just punishment part is for us. But we have to take into consideration that some of these young people know exactly what they're doing when they're committing these crimes.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Somebody has a question for you. They say, because in Alabama, hold on, let me try to show it. In Alabama, there's the death penalty. So they're saying, are you saying a 15-year-old should or could face the death penalty?
Not at all. Not at all.
Can I ask a question?
You're not killing a 15-year-old. A 15-year-old has ability to be rehabilitated if he's put in a system that is created to rehabilitate.
But if you charge as an adult,
so when you charge him as an adult, then go ahead, Tucson.
So you charge a 15-year-old as a juvenile. He's released at 18 years old. For what? I mean, then he's done 3 years for murder. What are we talking about?
Not what happens, but
no, I'm just saying if we're talking about juvenile justice, juvenile, he's charged as a juvenile, so he maxes out at what, 21, 18, 20, 18 to 21?
25 in California.
25 in California. So that's California. So in Michigan, what is it, Tucson? It was 18, 21?
Yeah. So I actually was a part of a kid case. And he killed someone when he was like 13 or something like that. He was like the second youngest charged, and he was released when he was 18 years. I think he was 21. I think he was released when he was 21. Yeah.
Okay. So
and he hasn't committed another crime since. With
the proper rehabilitative environment around him, I'm fine with that. I'm not okay with incarcerating a 15-year-old with a bunch of adults. There has to be a middle ground between there. It can't just be total punishment, but it can't be total, he's just a kid. It has to be a gray area there. It has to be. Because if not,
so in the juvenile system where it works is, if we're gonna use the 15, they get juvenile life all the way till you're 21, and then if you don't commit another crime after that, once you get released, then sometimes the charges go away. Now, if you do, then you head on over to the adult. But charging a teen as an adult at 15, and then he's at children. I'm always going to use the Oxford situation. Switching him from children village to an adult facility is definitely not right. He's 15, and like I said, I think the school failed him. I believe the community failed him as well, due to, yeah, he had conversation as he was bullied. And a lot of kids don't do things, do these school shootings because just because they want to, or they seen it on a movie or anything. Something had to be led up to him going in and shooting up the school. Many situations we have seen is that children come in and they have been bullied, and that's been one of the top priorities in mostly all these school shootings. And as we've seen from Tuesday all the way to now, it's almost Friday, and yes, people are copycatting over these shootings and making threats, bomb threats, and etc. When you start putting in resources, more resources into the schools, and really focusing on the kids that are being silenced out. Working in Detroit. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
So go ahead.
Let's let EJ go, and then
I just to Sandru's point before, so let's imagine Oxford or any shooting that you can imagine, heinous, multiple people have been murdered. You know, what do you believe is the appropriate punishment? Divest ourselves from this juvenile system, adult system. Do you think that a kid, we've already made clear that it appears that you don't think a kid should get the death penalty. You think a kid should spend the rest of his life in prison without the chance of getting out?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So what is the worst possible punishment you think should be reserved for a child who commits the most heinous crime that you can think of?
The most heinous to me is murder. So
Okay.
we're talking 15 years old. I think you do 7 to 10, but it has to be in a system that is set up for your rehabilitation. That means therapists. That means parent counseling. That means a holistic approach to your rehabilitation. It can't just be about punishment. It has to be about rehabilitation. Now, if we're just talking about punishing a kid, then I can't wrap my mind around a system that just punishes a kid for his actions when there was an environment that led up. There was a culture that was created that allowed him to become what he is. There has to be accountability on his part. I think there has to be some parent counseling. There has to be some, we have to look at the whole environment. But this kid has to understand that what you did was wrong, and there's some punishment that comes with it.
Well, I think you kind of agree with what we're saying.
Is more
right.
You're more likely to get what you're describing accomplished through the juvenile justice system than you are through the adult system, because the adult system, one of the tenets, the absolute foundations of adult criminal justice in every state in this country is retribution, is punishment. And that's made clear in pretty much every penal code or statutory law in every state, that one of the purposes of punishment in the adult system, one of the purposes of the criminal justice system in the adult system is punishment. And even if you can imagine some system where there's 7 to 10 years of, just counseling, therapy, all of these things like this to really engage and rehabilitate a kid, I think that that's more likely in a juvenile justice system that understands the way kids' brains are formed and the way they operate, as opposed to a system that that basically is geared towards adults and is harshly punitive.
So let me talk about the adult system real quick, because I also believe that every adult criminal does not deserve life without the possibility of parole. There has to be, I'm a believer. I'm just going straight up. I'm a believer. And I believe that everybody deserves a second chance. There's things that I've done that I didn't get caught for, that I probably should have done some time for. But by the grace of God, I didn't. Amen. But this system, the justice system, I have to go back to what I said earlier. It's not set up for black and browns to be rehabilitated. It's only for punishment. It's very few. It's very few. It's white people who get caught up in it, white men and women who get caught up in it. But it's set up for our destruction. So it was not meant to be fair or just. It was not meant to be equal. It was not meant to be rehabilitative. It was not to be. It was not to be. It was not set up for the child, the young child who commits a crime to be only meant, like you said, to punish. And that's even in the juvenile system. And I'm gonna call out this place name because it was probably one of my favorite jobs I ever worked at. And there was a young man. I'm gonna say his name because what happened behind him was tragic. That system is set up. The juvenile system in some places is set up as a cash cow. So this young man, Maurice Cromer, was in the system with me, mentally unstable, cognitive, had dealt with a harsh life, and they were moving him. They moved him through the system. Though he was not ready to be released, when it was time for him to be he aged out of the juvenile system. He hadn't committed a serious enough crime to be switched over to the adult system. They let him go. He was out 1 year, 6 months before he murdered a police officer at a gas station. But some of his staff that worked with him knew this kid was not stable, should not be released. He needed intensive therapy. But because I set up to provide that type of care, he was released. I worked with several of these young men, and out of the 20 that I kept in contact with, only 3 of them are still alive or not incarcerated for long-term periods of life. And they were in a facility that was not punitive. It was all about rehabilitation. It was all about therapy. It was all about counseling. It was all about bringing the parents in and doing the holistic community restoration process. But it don't always work. For those kids, then what?
Let me jump in here. I got Timmy. Timmy is my good friend from Oakwood. Say hello, Timmy.
Hey, Timmy.
Hey, Timmy.
Good friend from Oakwood. And I introduced EJ. You already know EJ. He's always on with me. Sandrew is from Detroit, born and bred, a community activist, big in the church, does a lot of things, youth leader. And Jalen, as well, is community activist, big on youth things in Detroit. Timmy also has an opposing view from me, EJ, and clearly Sandrew, because the brother agrees with us, it sounds like.
Yes.
But tell us, why do you think that young people should be charged with dope? And we got to wrap this up because I don't usually do my little podcast longer than 30 minutes, but this is a hot topic, so we'll go to 45 minutes. So 7 minutes and we're done. But I want you to be able to get your comment out, Timmy. You're on mute. It's not working. Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'm off mute now.
Okay, there you go.
All right, only because I feel like if a juvenile wants to commit for juveniles, they don't commit crimes, they commit delinquent acts. But if you want to commit, if they choose to commit a serious offense, then as I stated to you, Antoine, they need to be charged in a serious, they need to be held accountable in a more serious manner, because the objective of juvenile court is rehabilitation. They focus more on why this particular juvenile, this particular child committed this offense, as opposed to punishment. That's for criminal court. And so I'm honest with you, I don't have much experience with juvenile. I probably don't have any. I have a lot in criminal, but not juvenile. But there were times that I've charged a juvenile as an adult. So that's just my stance on it. That's just my stance on it. When juvenile commits a serious offense at like murder or let's say rape or even for like first-degree assault, then I think that they should be held in a manner that is more serious.
So, Tim, I'm gonna give you a scenario. You tell me how you charge this person. A 16-year-old boy is babysitting 3 children, 7, 5, and 1. The 16-year-old finds a gun in the home, playing with the gun, discharges the gun, and kills the 7-year-old daughter, the 7-year-old little girl. How are you charging him?
He's playing with the gun around the children?
Yes.
I'm not sure if I would charge that as an adult.
Well, I think
because there's no intent.
It's a homicide, but there are different levels of homicide.
There's different levels. So what is that?
Okay. Around intent that have nothing to do with the criminal, with the adult or juvenile system. Like in California, children, the crimes that children are charged with are the same crimes that adults are charged with. They look at the penal code and they say, hey, this is a robbery. This is a penal code section 211. This is what we're going to charge them with. but they're just charged within the juvenile context as opposed to the adult context. And some of the differences are their judges conduct the trials. There's no right to a jury trial for juveniles, where you get a right to a jury trial as an adult. Those types of things. There are stark differences. Probation is much more involved. There are social workers that are much more involved. All of those things like that. But this idea that, you know, a crime can be as serious or more serious, resulting in adult punishment or adult criminality, to me, it's like people who want to harp on science until science no longer fits their narrative.
So,
you know,
I just want to say this. I was the 5-year-old. I was the 5-year-old little boy. My sister was the 7-year-old girl. So I don't know. I don't believe that young man should have been charged with a serious crime because he was 16 playing with a gun. But if there was intent behind it, and he meant to discharge that gun to kill that young lady, then yes, he should be charged with a serious crime. It's not 5 years and we're going home.
So as an adult, you're saying
there's got to be a middle ground. 5 years and going home ain't what we're talking about. Intent.
I have a question. Here's a question for EJ, Jalen. What is the age you all think a kid is no longer a kid? That's what Jair Thompson wants to know. What is the age that you think a kid is no longer? Because a lot of people ask,
who's doing that?
So I would say.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
One second. Hold on.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
So I would say, honestly, I would say 19. And why I say 19 is because still at 18, your brain is really not all the way developed. And you still have a lot more learning to do. You haven't been in the world that long to even experience some of the things that, you know, adults go through on a daily basis. So to answer that question, I think 19 will be.
EJ.
What was Timmy's response? Oh, you want me to?
Yeah. Well, Timmy already said she'll charge a kid as an adult.
Well, no, you asked.
Right. Yeah.
You asked a specific question about what is the age. Jair's question about what age do we think a kid is no longer a kid, and I think that it's important to understand the science and the literature behind that, right? Because for a long time, scientists, everybody was teaching that your brain develops in the first 5 years of your life. So like you at like 5 years old, you now understand, you know, choices, your brain is fully developed, and what you have at that point is what you're going to get. But over time, as the studies have improved, the analysis has improved, we've come to understand that they have put essentially an age, a surrounding age at which the prefrontal cortex of your brain is fully developed. And that is around your early to mid 20s. And so when you think about what we even think about as an adult, right? 18 is an arbitrary number as dictated by the science. Why do we say 18 is the age of adulthood? It's an arbitrary number. It doesn't have any basis or understanding in the science of brain development. And so to answer Jair's question directly, I think that kids are kids up until the point when their prefrontal cortex, when their brains are fully developed, and that's their ability to understand the implications of the choices that they make. And so I would say 24 to 25 years old, based on the science.
And that's interesting
about science these days.
It's interesting that you say that. Because in Michigan, HIDA is up until 24. So that goes along. So HIDA is a program. It's a program to prevent juveniles from having serious records, serious crimes placed on their records for long term, and having those crimes lead to long-term punishment. So you can get HIDA, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but so a young person between a youth can be charged with a serious crime, apply for the HIDA program or get rolled into the HIDA program, where if they go crime free for a certain period of time, they're not, the charges are not, those serious charges are not charged against them, is wiped off their record. You can be charged, you can get HIDA until you're 24 in this state. So I kind of rock with that, but there's a piece I also have to consider. Repetition. How many times has this person done this thing? Are you habitual? And that then goes to, okay, we might want to start looking at you a little differently, young man or young lady, because this might be something you've gotten away with all your life, and you're just used to the system patting you on the back, on your behind, and sending you to the corner, and you come out 5 minutes later. Now we have to put some serious sting behind this one. So I think it's a case by case. I don't think it's a white overarching theme. I think it's case by case.
Well, can I say something?
Go ahead, Timmy. We're gonna have to leave you with the last word now.
Well, no, I'm okay. Okay, so 3 things. First, well, that is something that the court considers, is if which is whether or not this particular juvenile has committed other offenses. And okay, first, I'm gonna go with the age of majority, and in Maryland, that's 18. Because the thing is, we can't say that. I know the science supports it, like you said, Eric, but we can't say that all juveniles, all of their brains develop at a certain point at the same time. Every child is different, right? So this cannot be a subjective. This can't be a subjective thing. This has to be more objective, which is why I think states have age of majorities, like 18, because at that age you're legally an adult. Because
but you're not.
But why are you legally an adult at that age?
But you're not legally adult because you can't drink.
You're talking about something that's objective and not
Hold on. One person at a time.
I'm gonna go by the law of Maryland, and I'm just all right. And Maryland, that's the age. That's the age of majority.
I understand, but what I'm asking you is, laws are a accumulation of people who have come together and have decided certain things based on what what's known to them at the time that they decide them, right? And so just because someone has got into a room and said, hey, 18 is the age of majority, that's what we're going to say is adulthood, that doesn't necessarily mean we should just accept that as a fact or as true, right? That would be subjective to say, hey, the law says 18, so it's 18. If the science dictates something else, screw the science because the law says it's 18, right? That's a subjective approach to understanding the mindset and the brain development of kids. Now, I agree with you that everybody's brain doesn't develop at the same rate, right? But I think this is to Kristen's point about a baseline. When you're talking about why you have age limits and why you have certain things in place that govern decision making, I think that you look at the science and then you understand environmental factors. You account for racism, for trauma. And a lot of those things, if you do account for all of that, will lead you back to the place where, depending on how a kid is raised, the environment that they're nurtured in can tell you a whole lot about where their life is going to end up. And I think understanding that in the juvenile justice system's goal of implementing that and deciding, hey, can we save this kid? Can we do something to make this kid more productive and in turn make society more productive? I think is the goal here. And
so technically,
right, but we can't. I don't know. Like that whole argument of child development and their brains, it's a slippery slope because if that's the case, no child could be held accountable for their crimes. If you're gonna say that it's not. Like a 16-year-old who intentionally murders their mother. I mean, you could say that, or even a 15-year-old, right? You could even say that child's brain is not fully developed. He's only 15 years old, but how is he going to be held accountable for his actions?
I think you have to assume that's only if you assume that the juvenile justice system does not hold people accountable. And so when you talk about what accountability is,
they don't.
I don't think that you can say that there's no accountability within the juvenile justice system. I don't think that that's true.
But the juvenile,
that's the narrative that we're constantly
Timmy, real quick,
against because it's this idea that only the adult system has accountability.
Right.
That's not true.
Timmy, real quick, can I say something?
So
Timmy, real quick.
Hold on. Let me just address. I'm sorry, Mr. Sandrew. I'm sorry. Is it Sandrew?
It's Sandrew.
Okay, I'm sorry. Give me 1 minute. Let me just address Eric. For Eric, we can both agree that the purpose of juvenile court is rehabilitation, right? They're more focused on the child's future, right? That's why it's not as harsh as the regular criminal justice system, right? We want to give this child a chance. He's still young, he's he's a child. That's why they don't commit crimes. They commit what's it called, delinquent acts, right? They don't have trials, they have adjudications. And so okay, so the main objective, from what I know about juvenile court, juvenile law, is rehabilitation. The main objective of the criminal is punishment, right? So I don't think and I'm not saying I'm not a proponent of rehabilitation, because I am, but I'm an even bigger proponent of punishment. And so that's why I'm saying that I don't think that they're not being held accountable as strongly as they should. If the objective is only rehabilitation, there has to be more than that for me. If and when they do commit serious crimes like murder, right, or rape, or even first-degree assault.
Okay, let's take it. Sandra has a question for you, and we'll end with that question, okay? And Jalen, we'll have Jalen make.
I have a question for Tammy too.
In this country, in the Civil War, I'm going back. There was 16 to 17-year-olds allowed to fight in the Civil War. They were allowed to murder in the name of this country in the Civil War, as a part of, hey, this is a good thing for you to do, fight for your country. In this country, at 18, you can go off and fight in the war and kill people and whatever this country deems is okay. But you're not an adult until you're 21, because you can't drink. There's a lot of things you can't do until you're 21. So how is it the accountability is 18, but the legal age is 21? See that right there. That right there.
Well, first thing is, it sounds like Sandra has joined our side.
What?
Hold on, wait a minute now. Yeah. I'm still with the aspect of punishment on aspects. I believe that punishment is okay in certain aspects, but we have to look at this thing holistically. How is it that it's possible for an 18-year-old to kill but can't buy alcohol? How is that possible in a country that says you're legal at this age, but then I'm gonna dump down and say at 15 you can be charged as an adult, but I can't even make a decision as far as which school I want to go to at 15 without my parents' permission. So we're murking the waters up with this adulthood, charging adult punishment, rehabilitation. So once the water gets clear, then we can make an informed decision on whether we with punishment or rehabilitation. As long as this water is dirty, hey, we got to figure this thing out.
I'm glad we're converting people on here.
Well, juveniles should only try. I have no problem. My only thing is, if a juvenile wants to commit an adult crime, he should be tried.
Jalen, you have to jump in there.
That's just
no. I'm just saying, Tammy. So I think this whole conversation is great, and we haven't brought up one key point in children development. I know Eric said your brain developed at the age of 5. That's what the science says.
Used to say.
We're gonna put that. He also said 24 is the age where he think a person should be charged as an adult. So one thing we haven't brought up is kids that have a learning disability. And so are you still going to charge that person at the age of 15 as an adult if they have a learning disability?
What's that to do with whether they know right from wrong?
Because they have a learning disability, they doesn't know.
That has a big part. If they're cognitive,
that's a big part.
If they're cognitively impaired.
Wait a minute. If you have dyslexia, you still know the difference between right and wrong. You just can't read straight.
If you have symptoms of bipolar or schizoaffective disorder, things like that, mood swings, if you have cognitive delays, your IQ is a certain level where you don't comprehend as well as other people do.
Right.
Like those things, and that's where the juvenile justice system takes those things into account.
Right.
Like, there was a time when I was in the juvenile justice system where you see kids handcuffed, brought into court in handcuffs before their parents, right? Like to say that there's no accountability or that that doesn't count for anything. Like, have you ever seen a kid just like not understanding why he can't go home to his parents, and like literally like just not understanding. Like, we're not talking about like, you know, somebody who's done, you know, a murder. I'm talking about kids who are tried as kids, you know, just they don't, and trying to explain to a kid, you have the right to a trial. You have a right to a lawyer. Anything that you say can and be used can be used against you in a court of law. You know, what kid understands that? You know, this world to them, even in the juvenile justice system, is like a nightmare, a living, utter nightmare. And so to now take such kids and say, well, you committed a very serious crime, so we're going to put you in an adult court. So when you come to court, you're going to come to court on the same bus as adults. You're going to come to court with and if we may house you with adults, but if you're a kid, since we can't house you with adults, we'll put you in solitary confinement. So you have to sit in a cell for hours and hours and hours at a time, waiting for things. Like, I mean, this is the reality that we're talking about here. We're talking about if you're put in an adult facility, you're going to be likely sexually assaulted, right? You're going
immediately
to be used as a kid. Like, and so when we talk about trying kids for serious crimes or trying kids as adults, like, these are the things that we have to really think about. The likelihood of you committing suicide is going to skyrocket, right?
Yes.
These are the things that are going to happen. And so I think if we, you know, Brian Stevenson says something that I think is extremely important, is if you want to understand, if you want to affect change, you have to get close. Proximity is critical, because when you get proximate to these issues, it's easy to stand behind a computer and say, oh, kids should be charged as adults. But go and see a kid, go and sit with a kid who's sitting in an adult prison, experience a friend who's been charged as an adult and is looking at 20 years of his life in an adult prison. And I honestly think that a lot of people would change the way that they think about the system. I mean, you know,
I think the prosecutor,
everybody's emotional. Everybody right now, they're very emotional, and when things like that happen, they get very emotional. Like, hey, let's start charging.
Right. You know? I'm thinking, okay, in a situation like that, I'm focused on the victim's family. So I understand what you mean about, you know, the children and why can't they? Okay, so are you talking about, Eric, are you talking about a situation where there's some type of cognitive disability, or a child who has no cognitive disability? Are you saying the ones who don't have a cognitive disability can't understand their rights?
Your most well-meaning child is going, your smartest child,
right,
explaining to a child what proof beyond a reasonable doubt is,
right,
and what the right to a trial by a bench officer is. They don't understand that. Most adults don't understand what proof beyond a reasonable doubt is.
Right,
so
right.
Eric,
children are certainly not going to understand what.
Eric, let's go even be simpler than that. The right to remain silent. Most kids, when they get in trouble, they want to speak in their defense. Hey, I didn't do it. Or they want to start lying if they did do it. They don't understand you have the right to shut up and not self-incriminate. That's a hard concept to even understand. But I only want this with the justice system. I want, if a black kid shoots up the school and a white kid shoots up the school, that the system looks at them both the same way. No longer can it be Timmy in Oxford, and I don't know the kid's name, gets looked at. We start digging into his history, start looking at his environment, talk about his dad not being there, and give that as a reason for him not being convicted. But Sandrew, who had a worse situation than Timmy, gets life because I killed 5 black people. I killed 5 people, and it's in our nature to be violent. That's what we need to make. That's the big thing. If we start there, if we start breaking it down from there, because I guarantee you, once we start seeing this system as it's set up to be, where there is a difference in not only youth and adults, but black and white, there's no way either one of us on this platform could have had our parents drive us across the state line with an AR-15, shoot through 2 people, and be let go out on bail first, and then set free. So the system is just jacked up all the way around.
I agree. I agree with that for sure.
Let me ask you a question. Y'all don't think Rittenhouse should have been? Wait, he was a minor, right? I don't know much about that. Was he a minor?
Yes, he was a minor.
17.
Okay,
yeah.
I just want right. So y'all don't think that Rittenhouse should be tried as an adult? Do you think that he should not have been tried as an adult? I mean,
I don't. You know why?
He understood what he was doing.
You know why? His parents should have been tried. His mother should have been charged.
No. His mom didn't have the gun. He did.
His mother dropped the gun. She set him to murder.
Timmy is saying his mother didn't have the gun.
No,
he had it.
And he's old enough to make his own decision and say, no, thank you, Ma. I don't feel like murdering today. I mean,
sorry.
So to answer your question directly, no, I don't think that he should have been tried as an adult if he's a minor at the time that he committed a crime. And that's not a very difficult answer for me to give, because I think the kids should be looked at as kids, and there are ways to promote and enforce accountability. I think what Sandru's point is more the disparity in treatment between certain kids in the system is what really is problematic. And so, but that doesn't mean that we just want all kids to suffer. Like, I mean,
no.
If I don't think that the guy Dylan Roof, who shot up South Carolina, the church, should have gotten the death penalty, because I just don't believe in the death penalty.
I do.
And honestly, the reality of the situation is if you look at the criminal justice and the system and you understand its history, whenever harsh laws are implemented, the people who bear the brunt of those laws are Black people. So when you ask for
almost always
for anyone in the system, for white individuals, for everyone else, believe me, for every white person that gets the harsh punishment, there's going to be 10 Black people that get either that harsh, or more harsh.
See, I
believe in the death penalty because it's biblical.
I believe in it.
He should have got charged as a juvenile, not as an adult, as a juvenile though. Again, I'm two side notice already. I'm anti Black Lives Matter person. I have definitely personal reason, because I believe we saying Black Lives Matter, but it cannot matter if we out here killing each other. But it only matters when someone kills, if a white person kills us.
Brother, you're going into different spirits.
I support that. But
I'm bringing it up because we saying Black people get the harsher crime and everything, but if it was a white person, they get, slap on the wrist and everything. But
Eric, but death penalty is biblical. The death penalty is biblical.
So, yeah, we can get way out there. We thank you all. Thank you all.
We don't live in a theocracy.
I gotta bring Timmy back
democracy.
I can show you.
So, I'm sorry, guys. In the case of Rittenhouse, right? Because that verdict really pissed me off. In the case of Rittenhouse, how do I say this?
Just say it. We grown.
I know. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how I can get it out. In his situation, and I know, Eric, you don't believe that he should have been tried as as an adult. In his situation, I don't think that the main objective of rehabilitation, which is the objective for juvenile court, is sufficient in that situation. That's why I believe that some juveniles, well, not some, all juveniles who commit certain crimes should be held, to a higher standard. Because sometimes rehabilitation is just, as a main objective, is just not sufficient. Rittenhouse, no. That's not sufficient.
I mean, listen.
So therapy isn't sufficient.
To their opinion, I can't fight you on your opinion if that's
right.
What you believe. That's what you believe. But I think that I've given some really factual scientific data as to why I think the kids should be treated as kids in the system as opposed to adults.
Right.
And what you do with that is what you do with that. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm not going to fight you on your opinion. But I disagree.
Tammy, what state are you in?
Honestly, Eric, I'm in Maryland.
And you're
let us wrap it up. We gotta wrap it up there.
I'm not going anywhere near Maryland with you as a prosecutor. I just know that is a fact. Stand the heck away from Maryland.
Sandra, you hopped on saying Darcy kids as adults.
Listen, I believe some be charged as adult, depending on the repetition of their crime. If you're a habitual criminal, you've been getting slapped on the wrist too many times. It's time for you to face punishment. Sit your behind down for about 15 years.
Right.
So
You know,
so with that,
no,
so
I mean, I've had this conversation before.
I was going to share a few personal stories, but I think that you all have done a great job in talking about this topic. Hopefully, we'll bring you all here. We know we have any more criminal justice matters. We'll call EJ, Tiffany, Jalen, and Sandra. And we know Sandra can be swayed, in the middle of the conversation.
Listen, I have not been swayed. I still believe they
Oh,
deserve.
brother, you've been swayed. Go back and look at the podcast from the beginning, and you've been swayed, my brother.
No,
But, hey,
go with it. I'll go with it.
So Tammy,
I
you a
appreciate
prosecutor,
y'all
right?
joining.
Yeah, she's a
You're a
Maryland.
prosecutor in
TV
Maryland.
ain't playing down
Wait.
there.
You a prosecutor in Maryland, right?
No, I'm not practicing right now.
Oh, you're not practicing right now.
No, not right now.
Amen.
I'm doing civil work. I deal with child support right now.
Amen.
Right.
I'm at Detroit Behavior Institute here in Detroit.
I worked at DBI.
Yeah, it's about 75% of the children that's in there
I'm from Maryland.
Yeah, from Maryland, Texas, Virginia,
Oh, yeah.
everywhere. And so
We import them.
and most of these kids are they grew up without parents in the house or been living on their own since they was about 10 or 11 years old.
Right.
And so the thing that you say you would charge them as an adult, that really got to me, because I worked at plenty of juveniles and everything, and most of these kids in here grew up without parents or any support system around them.
Yeah.
And so all they know right now is survival at the moment.
Gotcha. Listen, okay, we got to end it there. We got to end there for sure. We definitely went way over time. We'll be back. I'm gonna try to do this every week, at least once a week, and we'll bring you back. Thank you all for joining. Great topic, great conversation, even great comments. Y'all be blessed. Talk to y'all soon.
Peace.